Good morning and welcome to the Corporate Parenting Board. It's a virtual meeting here on Tuesday the 23rd of March. So have we any apologies, Jodie, for the meeting, please?
No, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask colleagues to look at the minutes of the previous meeting on pages 1 to 10 and ask if there are any alterations or amendments that need to be done? And can I ask if everybody is happy? Well, I don't really need you all to tell me that you're happy, but if anybody isn't happy that they're a true record, could you let me know now, please? I'll take it then that those minutes are accepted and are seen as a true record. I don't know if any members have any interest to declare. If so, could I ask that you complete the form that's available in the pack and return that to Jodie as soon as you can. All the items on this agenda are to be held in public. So item 5, deputations and petitions. Are there any deputations and petitions? No. Moves us to item 6, which is public question time. Have we received any questions from members of the public, Jodie?
No questions received, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Can I just say, I don't know what other people are seeing on the screen, but I'm looking at a blank screen that just has Colleen's name at the bottom of it, and I can see nothing else.
I keep getting people's faces over others. So I've had Colleen and Richard's face. So it's in wiggly lines. There seems to be a problem with connections this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what is visible to the public, but I am struggling to see anything except a blank screen.
Yeah.
Mine's all right.
Oh, well.
We'll check with IT about the.
It makes it very tricky to chair when I can't even see people. But there we are.
Suggests individual bandwidth constraints, doesn't it? If some are okay and some are not, it suggests it might be your connection.
Well, it's never happened before.
No.
It will.
Thank you. So if I could ask colleagues to look at a review of the terms of reference of the board, just 13 to 16. People will recall that the last board was cancelled and moved to this date, and that was really because of the volume of work that officers within the service were experiencing, and actually we were putting a greater strain on people's ability to attend and provide reports in times. However, when you look at this, the board will meet a minimum of 6 times per annum, and it said bi-monthly, and I think because I've sort of said, well, let's move to 6 weekly, that makes it slightly at odds with our terms of reference as such. So we are actually okay within bi-monthly, and I'm hoping that people are happy that we do a minimum of 6 times a year, and there will be bi-monthly. We ended up meeting almost monthly at the beginning of the year, and I think that's what put the pressure on people as such. I don't know if anybody has any comments or thoughts about that. Are you happy with the terms of reference as they stand is really what I'm asking. Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to support this proposal. It's appropriate for where we are at the moment. I think with bank officers for all the work that they're doing, and yeah, we shouldn't really be burdening them any more than necessary with extra meetings, as long as we can carry out the business that we need to carry out within the terms of reference suggested here. So yeah, I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Thank you very much. I noticed Barry has asked a question, but we aren't at that point in the agenda yet, Barry. So if you would halt fire a little bit, that would be great. All right, so we'll take those as we accept those and still are happy with those. If we could move to agenda item 8, please, which is the highlight report. And I think I'm going to ask Julie Bragg if she's going to start us off with that as we go through the report. If you do the first part, Julie, and I think then we'll bring in Barry because he has a particular question as such on that part.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Julie Bragg. I am Head of Corporate Parenting with Responsibilities for the Children in Care, the care leavers, and parts of the fostering service. So in terms of February's figures for children in care, I have to say that it is an improving figure in all aspects of our performance indicators, which is good. We have had a slight decrease of the numbers of children coming into care from January to February. In January, we stood at 673, and in the end of February 2021, we had 666 children in care. As I say, an improving figure for the number of our children and young people that are placed more than 20 miles from the Kirklees area. I have to say we've done lots of work around this at looking at bringing children back into the area, and we now stand at 72 of our children. A decrease, as I say, a decrease in numbers from our January figures, and we are remain below statistical neighbours. We've had a reduction in our placement moves, with 3 or more placement moves. Again, in January we're at 52. We're now down to 48 in February 2021. And also a reduction in the number of changes of social workers, which I think is always a really good way. We're making improvements around the numbers of social workers that children and young people have. And again, an improving picture with our statutory visits, within the practice standards from 87.7% in January to 90.8% in February. As I say, I think what we've said throughout all of the COVID and the lockdown, we've had lots of innovation in terms of how we've done our visits, virtual visits. We are now back working in the office on rotas, and we are fulfilling our requirements in terms of face-to-face visit with children and young people, unless there are situations, for example, if there's COVID in the household, in the home, well, we obviously have to do and undertake our risk assessments around that. So those are the figures for children in care. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
I think Barry Lockwood is indicating he has a question about stability meetings.
Yeah, why can't we have that as a figure on there of stability meetings when a foster carer gives 28 days notice? It's something I would like to see on there so I can actually see the figures myself.
Okay.
Because you said you've got several placements that you're trying to support. I'd like to see the figures there.
Okay. I mean, we do have our own figures to hand. It's something we just don't report back to the Corporate Parenting Board.
Well, it's something that the carers will be interested to know.
Okay, yeah, and what you also have to remember, Barry, is that some of our figures are not just obviously foster carers, residential. There are a number of different placements that are available. But if that's something that we need to report on, then that's something we can look at doing to bring back to the board. Councillor Kendrick, I'm led by you in terms of your views as chair.
Well, let's have a discussion about that at the next portfolio briefing and how that could be resolved as such.
Yeah, okay, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this part of the report so far? I'm not seeing. There's an indication from John Lawson. I don't know if that's your previous comment or not, John, or it's on this bit.
That's an old one, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So if we continue on then, looked after children reviews, visits and missing is the next section within the report on halfway down page 18. Who is taking us through this, please?
Good morning, Councillor Kendrick. It's Sarah Miles, Head of
Hello.
Quality Assurance and Safeguarding. Hi, I can talk on talk to 4.601 looked after reviews held within timescales, which is that the performance indicator shows that we're above 98% of reviews being held within timescales, and that's an improving picture with the average of 97.4 over the 12-month period, and we've remained above 96% for the full 12 months. And what I would say is, whilst the majority of the reviews are being held virtually at the moment, what we are doing is being innovative about how we can hold those reviews. And Anna Gledhill is going to talk about young people's participation in their reviews. But in terms of that, we are seeking to involve children and young people wherever possible and being led by them. The independent reviewing officers are monitoring, closely monitor looked after reviews to ensure that they're held within timescales. And where that's not possible, there's a clear rationale recorded, and it's an area of practice that we're focusing on.
Thank you.
I can't. Anna, did you want to say? Did you want something around child participation in reviews? I think, Anna, if we could talk about the children's advocacy.
Yeah, good morning, Councillor Kendrick. It's Anna Gledhill here. I have responsibility
Hello,
for the Children's Rights Service. So you'll see from the report that in February, the Children's Rights team supported 11 children and young people in terms of advocacy at their looked after review, and 3 of those were for children living outside of Kirklees. Now, the representation of children outside of Kirklees is made easier by virtual reviews. However, it has the numbers don't change very much in terms of before COVID and after COVID. So the Children's Rights team don't accept a referral. So if a referral comes through where a young person wants children looked after advocacy, we always accept it. But of course, the virtual way of working has made it easier to support children virtually who live further away, because it takes away the travel. Some of the feedback though, because we are looking at this now that the guidance is starting to change and the conversations are being had in terms of meetings, because at the moment all of the looked after children reviews are held virtually. And the feedback from children and young people themselves directly is that when they're supported by somebody, by an advocate at that meeting, they do struggle to be supported appropriately without being in the same room as that advocate. And so whilst we're looking at various models of working, that the feedback as well can be quite individual. I know some children and young people have found it easier to participate and be present in that meeting, and others have struggled with the virtual element. So having the child's voice really, when we're looking at this moving forward with the review unit and the reviewing officers, etc., is going to be central in terms of what's going to work.
Thank you. I certainly would be interested, I'm sure colleagues will be, that in the future, as you're looking at this, that you come back and speak to us about, what your findings are and what your decisions are. I would hope in the end, because some young people have reacted well to virtual meetings and others, as you say, want the real one, that actually either option could be on offer, or any variation on that would be interesting, because each of these children and young people are individuals and their needs are different as such. If it was possible to provide a range of options so that they will get the most out of those review meetings. It would be great.
Absolutely.
Can I ask when people are going to speak to bits of the report that they put their video on, please? Because I do feel I'm conducting something on some sort of strange radio at the moment. I think we, Colleen, you have a question about.
Yeah, that's the next bit missing. It's for the missing, just to say.
Oh, for the missing bit, yeah.
The next bit.
If you could just put speaking as we get to a bit, or indicate which bit. So, I'm losing my place as much as anything. So, can we address the missing part of this as well? Then we've looked at reviews as such. Is anybody going to comment or talk about the missing part of things? No idea if anybody's trying to speak, but there is showing on my screen.
Good morning, Councillor Kendrick. It's Elaine McShay, Service Director, Family Support and Child Protection. I think the question asked previously was about understanding the different type of missing episodes. So what I can say is so this morning, and I have this every morning, I actually get a list of all those children and young people that have been missing. And within that, it tells me who the child is, what their placement is. I get the date of birth, whether they're a child looked after, child in need, are they known to children's social work services, are they a child from other local authorities. I get details of the missing episode and also conversations that have taken place, whether that's with the carer, with the child or young person. If the child or young person hasn't been spoken to, I get a date for when that return interview is going to take place. So, and then what we do with all this information is collate it as a whole. I think perhaps what we need to do is break that down and bring some of this detail and the themes specifically related to children looked after, so members understand their experiences. Are they forthcoming at the return home interview? Because actually sometimes young people don't want to talk to someone about that missing episode, so we try to be creative about identifying. It has to be an independent interview, but what we're trying to do as well, if they're not willing to talk to that person independently, so someone that they've got a positive, constructive relationship with, so we can understand the reasons behind the missing with a view to preventing that going forward. So I think that's some information we can bring to another meeting as well and have a conversation around that. That'll be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that would be useful. Is that what you would hope for and envisage, Colleen? I know you were asking about this.
Yeah, it is. It's just themes really, and which areas it is. Because as a foster care, I'm thinking, ooh, there's a lot that's. Is it our sector or is it children's homes? Is it gang related? What is what is the common theme really? And that's what we're trying to get at. If we could find that out, that would be great for us as a foster care association to work with with carers.
Yeah, what I'd want to add as well is I closely monitor children from other local authorities that live in Kirklees that are missing, and if I think there's an increasing concern and pattern, I ask that we speak to the other local authority to make sure that their risk assessments are as robust as ours. So that's something we can look at, certainly.
That would be great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Can we move on to page 20, please? Looked after children education outcomes. I think this is Janet.
Hi, good morning, Councillor Kendrick. Good morning, everybody. Janet Tolley, virtual school head teacher.
Could you put your video on, please?
It is on, Councillor Kendrick. Sorry.
Then there is something obviously wrong at my end, because all I can see is a picture of you, which is quite delightful, but I'll continue with that. Thank you.
Can other people see the video? Yeah, great. Okay, sorry, Councillor Kendrick. It must be a connectivity issue. So if we just look at page 20, obviously the situation regarding education has been very different over the last 12 months with lockdowns, and then our young people, most of our young people actually, attending their education provision as part of the vulnerable offer. Just to put into context that obviously schools have returned fully. And we're into the second week of that at the moment. So there's been lots of change. There's been lots of different ways of working. As Anna said, we've been doing all of our work remotely and virtually. So that has had advantages as well as disadvantages. So the achievement coordinators have been able to be involved and support social workers and schools in all PEP meetings. So in normal working, we might try to get to one of the 3 PEP meetings every year, but we've been able to get to all of them because there hasn't been the travel. That's meant that in the autumn term, 100% of PEPs were completed so at least one meeting for every young person in the autumn term, and we're on target for the same in the spring term. So that's been very useful and helpful. We'll need to work across service as to how we gradually maybe phase in a blended approach, as you were talking about, Councillor Kendrick, that meets best the needs of individual young people, but also enables us to be involved in as many conversations and to support and challenge for our young people as possible. In terms of initial PEP meetings, that's been very, very good within the 10 school days of a young person coming into care. Actually, the 96% is actually the 3 young people this academic year. It's just slightly over the 20 days, and they've been unavoidable at this moment in time with the situation. But I think that, you know, both of those statistics are a real credit to the way that social workers and the achievement coordinators in the virtual school have been able to work together. We've also, through those conversations, been able to support young people with what they need. So we've mentioned previously, you know, digital access, digital devices, because of the systems that we have wherever the young person is in the country. We work with the school. We're able to get funding to the schools immediately and equipment to young people immediately. There have been detailed reports around the work of the virtual school that have been presented to the virtual school governing body. I know Councillor Patterson is on the meeting. Those are regular, and they also look in detail at attendance. So during the lockdown, we've been monitoring the number of young people who've been attending the vulnerable offer. And we've been supporting young people who, through risk assessment, in educated at home. Available. There's been things like COVID bubble closures. Young people have been symptomatic or had symptoms. There have been new codings from the DFE. There's something called an X code. So actually, the attendance tracking is not comparative to previous years, but I can say that we know the detail. School-aged young people, all but 9 young people gone back to school during the last 2 weeks. People were very aware of their individual circumstances and are working with other professionals to support them and their needs. School moves. We want to, as you'll know, that's one of the focus areas to try to reduce school moves. We work very, very closely across service to try to maintain school placements where we can for our young people. They are very carefully planned. Since September, 75.5% of school moves have been literally very well planned, moving from one school to another with a transition period, no break at all. The statutory timescale for when young people move unexpectedly is that within 20 working days, a school place should be sourced, and that's happened for 88% of our young people. It's a small number of young people where that hasn't happened. there have been some difficulties around COVID and availability in terms of talking to schools about admissions, but those young people are usually young people with more complex needs. So maybe have an education, health and care plan, which involves then a consultation process with specialist provision. And it's better to get it right and make sure that the young person is able to attend a provision that can meet their need than to try to rush something just to be within that 20 working days. And we work with the young person and the carers in those situations to move things forward as appropriately as we can.
Lovely.
I think our biggest I'm really pleased with how our young people have engaged throughout the pandemic in attending for the vulnerable offer. We've had high levels of engagement and attendance throughout. I'm also really pleased with the way our young people are going back into school at the moment. I do have some concerns because our youngsters have been used to working in much smaller groups, and obviously now everybody's back in school. So, you know, we're working really closely with everybody. Should there be any kind of issues arising, to try and ensure that we do everything possible to settle our young people. We do understand that everybody's been traumatised by what's happened in the last 12 months, and for many of our young people this is additional trauma on top of what they've experienced previously. So we're very sensitive around that, but I think one of the great strengths of what's happened over the last few months has been really strong partnership working between social workers and schools and the virtual school. In terms of just nursery attendance has been very strong all the way through. Nurseries were open during the latest lockdown. Post 16 is slightly different because the post 16 offer even now is slightly different. Some of our large colleges are not having all young people in at the same time because they're unable to have any kind of social distancing when they do. But we are carefully working with individuals to ensure that they're accessing the remote offer when they're not actually on site.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions?
I think Colleen wants to make a comment.
Yeah, I just want to say, Janet, thank you for everything you've done for our kids. It's been amazing what the virtual school have done to get tech out and get things organised. Hats off to foster carers, friends and family carers, and everyone that supported our young people, and the young people themselves. Just this last year has just been unprecedented, and how everyone's adapted and worked together for the best of our children has been amazing. So hats off to Kirklees for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you. And Barry, you got a question, I think.
No, Janet, you've answered my question. I were on about well-being and everything, and you've answered all that. I think you've done a fantastic job. So yeah, again, I agree with Colleen exactly. Well done.
Thank you. And carers know to contact us if they have any issues or concerns. So yeah, thank you very much. It makes it all worthwhile when you say that. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Janet. Can we move to page 21, please? Looked after children's health. I think Jill's going to take us through this.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jill Addy, designated nurse for looked after children in Kirklees. I did say that the report, I will be giving you a verbal update because at the time this was written, I didn't have the latest data from health, which is on a month by month basis, which is quite useful for us to see the progress that's been made. I know it says dental checks at the top. I'll come back to dental checks for the narrative about what's behind things so I can explain that a bit clearer. I'll just start with initial health assessments. These are still being done virtually by the paediatricians up at the hospital. We haven't been able to use the clinics, and if we had tried, we'd have only been able to have one person in the clinics. And for a competent initial health assessment, what we need is parents, carers, social workers, siblings, and it's just not been possible. The looked after children's nurses have been doing all the preparation for the assessments, and that involves taking a lot of history and getting it ready for the paediatricians to do, and then the nurses have done any referrals and support after that. But we've been very pleased that the paediatricians have managed to do, although it says here 92.8%, it is actually 100% on all months except July last year, that these were done within statutory timescales. Everyone has an assessment though. The only time it wasn't was July, and that was just because, one, we weren't informed about a new into care, and there was an appointment date error with another. But apart from that, it's just been fantastic. The review health assessments, as people will be aware, that we were doing virtual, which means doing them over the phone because of the redeployment of community nurses between April and October. So I just had my I have 2.8 whole-time equivalent nurses, and we had to do them virtually over the phone. But since October, we've got the community nurses back with us, and we can definitely see now there's the improvements in the data is coming through, and it's excellent. The data that you were able to provide, which is the rolling 12-month data, was 93.7 for the under 5s and 88.5 for the over 5s. I've now got the month-on-month data for February, and it was 91% for the under 5s and 96% for the over 5s. That's done in timescales, and they all get an assessment. It may just be slightly late. There was only 3 breaches, and they were for due to a workload capacity, a difficulty in arranging with the carer, and an out of area arrangement that needed sorting out again. So that is definitely going back towards our really good KPIs that we usually have, which are almost always in the 90-odd%. Dental checks. So I'll come back to this now. So the dental checks, you'll be able to see from page 21. You can see we knew this was going to happen because the dentists were not open, and you can see, and if you track it right back to April, it's just this descending number, and that is because we ask at their review health assessment, and as those review health assessments took place over the year, obviously more and more carers were saying, no, we haven't been, and obviously now this figure at 25.2 is really poor. But we do know that things are improving. We do know that the dentists have started to take children's appointments again, and we did a big rollout email to foster carers and carers quite recently to say, please contact your dentist, because they are starting to offer appointments again. Please make sure you tell them that you've got children in care with you, and that they're vulnerable and that they need an appointment. And I did get quite a lot of feedback from carers saying that yes, when they rang up, they did actually get appointments. So I think we're going in a better direction now. But that figure will stay low for up to 12 months because we ask at the point of their assessment. And for those under 5 years old, we ask every 6 months annually. Social workers do tell us when they find out that children have been to the dentist. So we do have in-between dates, but I think we're going to wait 12 months before we see that figure back up to where we can trust it. But I think registered with dentists has definitely come back on board. You don't collect that in the local authority, but health do. And the under 5s, for the review health assessments that we've undertaken in February, 100% of them over 18 months old were registered with a dentist. And for the over 5s, 94% of those asked at their February review health assessment were registered with a dentist. So that's good. I've been battling away with this all year, trying to get hold of people to put vulnerable children at the front of their lists and to invite them in. Eventually, I found the dental commissioner, a new person for West Yorkshire. I sent her a pre-written letter that I'd sent her to say, please, can you circulate this out to your dentists in West Yorkshire? And I didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks, which I think you heard on your last meeting that I'd not had a response, but she'd been on holiday. She came back and she sent it out. So I'm really pleased. There was no arguments about that. She was really pleased to receive it and sent it out. So I'm hoping that actually we're going to get some response from that now, just to make sure that we get these children seen, because my worry was the new into care, that obviously dental neglect can be an issue, and we sort of want to get that sorted out. Now the bottom one about substance misuse, this is something I think we need a discussion about. We're thinking about this. This is showing, it's really good, it looks really good that, you know, we've got one person who has a substance misuse issue. This is really this is looking at people who have a substance misuse issue on a daily basis. And the problem with this is it is collected from the review health assessments. And I'm thinking that maybe we could look at how else this could be collected, because young people will not admit to this. The young people that we've had on this on this actual key indicator in the past, they're quite often people who are involved in lots of other things that we actually know about them. They may be missing, involved in exploitation, and they're people that we already know have got an issue. You're not likely to get these young people telling us in a review health assessment in front of maybe the carers that they've got a real problem. And I think we need to look at just how we collect that piece of information and whether maybe social workers actually have more information than we do at the review health assessment. Because as you can see, we're well under the national average. And that's always the case. But we do wonder how everybody collects this. You can't really use the substance misuse services in the area either because they don't see all children in care. So maybe we just need to look at how we can look at this to get a true picture. That's it. Has anybody got any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but I'm inviting board members, if you have a question, to speak in the chat. Can I just say, tremendously well done in your efforts about getting our young people registered with dentists. I know it's been an issue you've been wrestling with for a long time, and I had to go at it and I failed, where you've actually managed it, Jill, so very well done with that.
Something that was really good, a carer rang me the other day to say, I'm really glad you asked me to ring because I've actually got my own children in as well now. So she'd got 2 of her own children and the ones that she was looking after, so she got all of them. Well, the whole family got an appointment actually, so that was sort of that was good.
Cherry on top of the cake,
wasn't it? Was for her, yeah.
This youth issue, I think that's possibly something that colleagues need to have a bit of a discussion about to see whether we can get more accuracy or more confidence in the accuracy of what we're seeing at the moment. And I absolutely understand why some young people may not say in front of carers and such like. So is there another route in? So we can mark that as a piece of activity we'd like.
I mean, we do have a lot of young people that use substances. We're not denying that at all. Every area does. But every young person that uses this is literally just about high level use. Any young person that we talk about that does use any substance or we suspect are offered a service. And we do collate the lower level stuff as well if we can. So this is quite specific, but because the government want this figure every year, it's something that we do try to collect, but I think there's probably a better way of doing it than this.
A better method, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Jill.
Thank you.
I've not seen any questions, so if we could move on, please, to halfway down page 22, looked after children convictions. Does anybody want to highlight anything in that part of the report?
Councillor Kendrick, morning everyone, it's Ian Watershaw.
Hello, Ian.
I don't know me, I'm a senior engagement service and the youth justice service. So if it's okay with yourself, I'll just go through quite a few of the highlights of the last 12 months around the youth justice service. First and foremost, I suppose I've referred to this as the youth justice service. I guess people who've been on here in the past will have recognised it as the youth offending team. It is a change in 3 words, but actually we feel that it's more significant than just the 3 words. I think Youth Justice Service tries to identify the changes that we want to bring and certainly puts the child first and doesn't create that label of youth offending. So I sort of bring that to your attention first. Obviously, it's not solely about children looked after, isn't that? But we now identify ourselves as the Youth Justice Service for those reasons. In the past 12 months, there has been a number of changes beyond the title of the service. Though not specific to children looked after, they are entirely inclusive of children looked after. And one of the primary changes has been the development and the introduction of the Youth Engagement Service. Now that brings quite a number of other services together to try and sort of coordinate and work in a much more collaborative way to support the young people at risk of exploitation. That further integrates the Youth Justice Service with children's services and especially those services for children looked after. And for your information, it includes the Youth Intervention Team, which is very much gang focused, the Risk and Vulnerabilities Team as it was, which was exploitation, and wrapping around that is early support. So the idea of getting in sooner and trying to make a difference. Oh, sorry, Elaine, was it not for myself to be giving the report this time?
I think it was the convictions. I think this is the complication with having the youth justice in the children's looked after report and then having a separate report around, because in the report that you're presenting, it gives more detail around that, doesn't it? It might be helpful to bring it into the next report, Councillor Kendrick.
Yeah, I'm just. I was just getting to that conclusion as you put the message, Elaine. So
I was getting into my stride.
You were, yeah, you were going for it. Page 22 is just a small bit, 22 on the top of 23. If in your main report you cover off those items, I suggest that we move on from those parts in the performance report and await your full delivery of the Youth Justice Service report, if that's okay. Yeah.
If that's fine with you, apologies. I think when I heard convictions and things like that, I thought that was there was a moment of silence. I thought that must be the point that I step in. So
I was really grateful that you did. Otherwise, I would be talking to myself as such. I think the complication today is that we've got a full report that you're going to present to us, as well as these bits in the performance report that really are probably duplicating that as such. So if we can move on from there, colleagues, please, to page 24 and 25, where we have adoption and fostering. And I don't know if it's Julia going to take us through those bits.
Sorry, Councillor Kendrick. Laura's going to do some of the sufficiency around the fostering in terms of foster carers. In terms of the adoption, then I'll be looking at doing that. So I'll just look at my notes. Here. So in terms of the adoption, I think we'll say that in February 21 we had 15 children that have been adopted, which I think it's fair to say that we are stood below the national average. And I think what might be helpful around the adoption is that we are actually preparing a report for our quality.
I think you've gone on mute.
I don't think she's realised, Councillor Kendrick.
No.
Sorry, can you hear me? I've been having so many problems at the minute. Could you hear anything I've said? Because my mic just keeps, for some reason, just feels like, all right, so this time I'm on mute. So it wants to.
I think you went off very shortly after starting.
Did I? Right, okay. Shall I just start from the beginning then? Because like I said, please prompt me if my mic goes off, because like I said, I don't always notice it, and it just, for some reason, turn itself off. So in February 21, we had 15 children that have been adopted. We are slightly below the national average for our figures. It's an improving picture in relation to the children coming into care and being placed with the doctors. and we've had a slight decrease in placement to match. I think it's fair to say that, and I think I've said this before, that initially in COVID, we had some difficulties with our transition planning and not being able to do transition planning in the way that we would like to. And coupled with that, we've also had some issues around care proceedings and court proceedings and court hearings. But I have to say now that it is starting to be an improving picture in relation to our children being placed for adoption. What I was saying, and I don't know whether I went off, what I think might be helpful, Councillor Kendrick, is if of a mind to that we are preparing a report with more detail around adoption for our quality assurance panel. And I was maybe suggesting potentially that's something we could bring back to panel to the board at a later date, which give more finite detail of the information throughout the last few months.
I think that would be really useful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a bit messy, really, because I think Laura's now coming to talk to us about the sufficiency around the fostering, and then it's back to me for the care leavers.
Okay, thanks, Julie.
We'll have a question after we've had the foster bit.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Cons. I'm Head of Sufficiency in Children's Social Care. So I'm responsible for fostering recruitment, the council's children's homes, and placements and placement arrangements for looked after children. Okay, so I'm going to just give you an overview in terms of the fostering numbers. So just to give you, and I will give you more of an update under the modernisation item. I have picked up fostering recruitment, and we are we have an in-depth review underway of our fostering recruitment function, you know, in recognition really of, you know, the numbers that we're seeing coming through through the system. So in terms of total new carers approval in the month, we approved 1 new carer in January, 1 in February. We had seen 4 in December. But clearly when, you know, when we look down, we need to improve on those numbers. So in terms of the, apologies, the 4 figure was total new carer approval. So when we look at fostering, it was actually 3. The other one would have been family and friends carer. Looking at in-house fostering deregistrations in the month, we had 3 in December, 1 in January and 3 in February. And, you know, as has already been commented on, and I will cover a bit further down, you know, we're not managing at the moment to even cover the foster carers who we are losing through deregistration with the additional foster carers we are recruiting. So just looking at the placement split, we've currently got, in February, we've got 240 in-house foster placements. That's a slight decrease from 247 in December. Family and friends placements, we're currently sat at 101. That was 104 in January and 100 in December. Our independent fostering agency placements have been quite static. We're at 189 in February. And the average over the years 192. You know, we've got a clear direction of travel to increase the number of in-house foster placements and see some decrease to the number of independent fostering agency placements. And we, you know, we want to do that for a number of reasons, but one of the key reasons is that, you know, we want children to be local. We want them to be in Kirklees, preferably where that's the right thing for them. But we also want to see that our in-house fostering offer is increased and enhanced so that we, you know, we can care for more children within our in-house foster placements. Okay, I think I'll give the modernisation update under the next agenda item, if that's okay.
That's fine. I see Colleen has some questions that she'd like to ask.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I've been looking into the figures that for the last 3 years of how many we've recruited and how many we've lost, and being a foster carer myself and also part of the Kirklees Foster Network, I've seen a lot of deregistrations, how many we've got in the pipeline. You know, if we've recruited 69 in the last 3 years and we've lost 81 in the last 3 years, it just feels like a dripping bucket, if you know what I'm saying. To top it up, it's coming out of the bottom. How do we retain people better? What exit interviews are done? What are we learning? What we're doing right, doing wrong? Is it the recruitment stage at the beginning that's not correct, or is it the support for the carers, or is it just, you know, what is the trend? I know there's not a lot of exit interviews going on, and I'm just concerned that we're repeating the cycle and we're not learning from it.
Okay. I mean, I think in terms of the things that you've mentioned, I would say it's a combination of all those things. We have got to get the recruitment side of things operating efficiently, so that we're focusing on those potential foster carers who are likely to come through a Form F assessment, so that we're focusing our resource on, on carers who are likely to come through panel. I think there's a clear focus on the induction that we provide to foster carers and the initial training that we provide to foster carers, and then how we then support the training to foster carers. Sorry, Julie, do you want to come in?
No, it's fine, Laura. When you finish, I was just going to add.
Okay.
Thanks, that's all.
Okay. So the initial training and support is really important, and some of the things that we've already implemented is we've moved kind of, so when a prospective foster carer is coming up to fostering panel, we allocate the supervising social worker a lot sooner, so they're allocated at the point where the carer goes to panel, because what we want to do is really support that initial first year of fostering, so that we kind of set foster carers off with as much support and guidance and training as we can, because we know that there will be difficulties along the way, and that's part of fostering. But it's how we really support foster carers in that first instance, once they've been approved. Just in terms of, before I come on to Julie, in terms of retention, I just wanted to comment on kind of, what you were saying around, I just wanted to comment on, what you were saying around sort of the numbers, and how, the sort of, comment around the dripping bucket, and that's something that when I was tasked with sort of picking up fostering recruitment back in November, and that's one of the clear goals of this piece of work, because we have to buck that trend. We have to get to the point where we fully understand our fostering recruitment strategy and the process attached to that, but also how we're supporting carers through their journey. And then, as you say, when we have deregistrations, we need to clearly understand why people are leaving us, because I think until we understand the full journey, that's at the point where I think we're gonna tip that balance. And I will let Julie come in, and I think some of the question around support, I think, will be covered in the item on modernisation, because we really do recognise that to run a really successful fostering service, that the support to carers needs to be absolutely right.
Yeah, definitely. I can see things going forward. It's just, when you look back on the trend, it's, now is the time we need to change and, support carers post allegation, and as well as pre-allegation and post allegation, because a lot of foster carers have been through the mill this last 12 months, and I'm sure there's loads. Now, do we support those carers to continue fostering? Because the COVID 12 months has been absolutely so stressful on carers. It's unbelievable. I'm a carer myself, and I know what I've gone through, and I know what we've gone through with other carers that have been on our virtual supports, and they really are struggling. And if we don't get it now, there's going to be a lot leaving in the next 6 to 12 months. I know that for a fact. I'm not going to say who, what, where and when, but there is a trend there. It's been very, very stressful, you know, and what we can do to support carers to even that, so that then they want to put people forward to come and work for Kirklees as carers as well, because at the moment morale is very, very low, very low. It isn't you, it's just a trend that's going on. We just need to look at it so we can just support everybody, because we don't want placements breaking down and kids moving either. So it's how we support carers, you know, to get this.
I think we all want that, Colleen.
Yeah.
I think let's when we get to it, let's look at the modernisation bit and then perhaps investigate that further. Julie, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think I was just going to sort of reinforce what Laura was saying, and I think, you know, when we start talking to you about the modernisation agenda, and I think Elaine's in the meeting to discuss some of that, and I think it's to be fair to say that we have recognised that, you know, that we have to do something, and which is why we've taken this approach to modernise the service, and I think it's right in that Laura said it's a combination. So, you know, starting at the starting point of strengthening our recruitment process along with the support that we give, and you know, it is an exciting model. I won't go on telling too much because I know Elaine's in the room to talk about that, but I think you know, to be fair to say, we've recognised that we do need to do something, and we are doing that certainly. Okay. To add those comments. Thank you.
Barry, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah. Exit interviews, how many have we done in this month? Did these people have exit interviews? I don't know who's going to answer, Laura.
I think I don't know whether Julie has that figure, because that sits within the supervisory team. I don't know, Julie, do you have that? What I can tell you, Barry, just whilst what I can tell you that we have done. Sorry.
You do your bit, Laura. Yeah, sorry.
No, what I can tell you that we have done is that we've done some work around applicants' feedback, people who have either come through the fostering assessment process or who have withdrawn at some point. So we've done some work around that, and we've collated some feedback, and that's been incorporated in the development plan we have in place for the fostering recruitment team. And there's been some, you know, some really useful feedback from that. So, you know, from the recruitment point of view, we're building in, you know, foster carers' feedback to develop the service.
It's just the foster carers in and now, because I've just had an email from a foster carer, and they are packing in, they're going. They've just said, and I'm supporting 3 who I know are going.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know what Colleen says, it's just a dripping bucket at the moment.
I think it's been an incredibly stressful time for carers,
Yeah, but
particularly.
We may lose more. Barry,
I think we need to move on. I take your point very well, and I think I think really some figures, even if they're not available today, but about exit interviews would be really relevant to the board as part of looking at this. Yeah. Can I just ask one question? COVID's got in the way of so many things, and I've been looking forward with great interest to the Mockingbird model as yet another way of supporting foster carers in crisis. And I notice in the report that we recruited a liaison worker to support that. I just wondered, have we any proposed time scale as to when Mockingbird will become available in Kirklees?
I think it's up for me to answer that, Councillor Ken. So you are right, we have recruited a recruitment officer, and also pleased to say that we've now recruited a hub carer as well. Initially we did put a bit of a pause on Mockingbird, but when we undid that pause, I don't think that's the right terminology, in earlier on in the year, we have moved pretty quickly. I think it's fair to say that with the Mockingbird model, and you know, conversations, discussions with the fostering network, where our support around this is that once you have a liaison officer in place and a hub carer, that's when you tend to start speeding alongside the implementation. So we were successful in a hub carer last week on our interview. So it's fair to say the process will be. We have a timeline and we're looking for the final implementation alongside with our roadmap, because obviously it will fit in with, as we move on to talk about the modernisation in terms of foster carer support. So that's the update at the moment. So things are moving. We had a pause, but we're now back up and running and full speed ahead. That's
good to hear. I'm going to conclude item 8 now and shortly move to item 9. We've still quite a lot of this agenda to go through, and just before we move on to item 9, can I say that if the meeting is still continuing when we get to midday to 12 o'clock, then we will be acknowledging what is meant to be a national day of contemplation for the 126,000 people who lost their lives because of COVID, and we will acknowledge a minute's silence and then continue the meeting. If the meeting just goes up to 12 noon, we will finish the meeting with a minute's silence unless we finish long before there. Thank you. So if we could move on to item 9, which I think will be fairly short, and I assume it's you, is it you, Julie, or is it Elaine, about the number and age of children in care?
It's myself, Councillor Kendrick. Yeah, so I think the report really speaks for itself in terms of, as I stated earlier, we've currently got 666. The majority of the age range of the highest numbers of figures is between 10 and 15-year-olds, for both boys and girls. And the highest number in terms of ethnicity is for white children and young people. Currently, at the moment, we have 26 young people placed in semi-independent accommodation, our 16+ accommodation, where it's a natural progression for children to move to in terms of preparing them for independence. Out of the 26, 10 are within the Kirklees area. 10 of those are out of the district. When I say out of the district, we have 6 young people in Bradford and 3 young people in Calderdale, and that's often because our providers, we know, are good providers, and they are still quite local, so accessible to the Kirklees area. We have another young placement that's placed in the Durham area, and that's through choice. He was that's where his placement was when he was in care, and he's chosen to remain in that area. And then we have another young person who is placed in Liverpool, and that is for safety issues, where a young person where we have to consider a move out of the area in terms of a potential risk. So I think that's very brief, Councillor Kendrick, but I think the report is clear in terms of the numbers and the figures. Councillor Kendrick, unless any questions.
Indeed it is. I can't see that any questions are coming up. No. So thank you for that, Julie. So if we move to item 11, please. Outcomes for children looked after involved with the Youth Justice Service. Mr. Ian Mottershaw, I think your moment is here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kendrick, and apologies again for jumping the gun.
Absolutely not. No.
I just didn't like that tumbleweed moment. I thought, oh, is that my cue?
I wasn't enjoying it either.
Okay, so I have already done those my introductions, and I did start to mention, and so I'll quickly sort of get to that point where I stopped before. So the Youth Justice Service is what we are called now, not the Youth Offending Team, and I explained the reasons behind that. And the 12 months that we've had, there has been quite a number of changes. The changes, as I said before, are not specific to children looked after, but they certainly include and are very inclusive of children looked after. And that is in the main the development of the Youth Engagement Service. I know we were speaking about it before the lockdown, but we've managed to progress a youth engagement service and deliver on that through this difficult year that we have all had to face. And what is the Youth Engagement Service? Well, it's designed to better integrate children's services with the Youth Justice Service. It focuses around the vulnerabilities and the young people who are at risk of exploitation, and obviously youth justice plays a big part in that, especially around the aspects of criminal exploitation. And we have brought together the services within children's services, including Children Looked After, youth intervention team, which focuses on the gangs, risk and vulnerabilities as it was, which was focusing around exploitation, and that further wraparound around early support. So that is the model that the Youth Justice Service is now married into, but more specifically around Children Looked After. In the Youth Justice Service, 11% are children looked after. That is a slight, but nonetheless a decrease from the previous year. Children looked after have a greater success rate on completion of their interventions, and the figures that we were going to touch on earlier are now at 93%. So 93% of all the children looked after in that youth justice cohort actually successfully complete their intervention. And as a benchmark, the general population is for Kirklees is around 88%. So the children looked after do actually at this moment in time, and that has shown a very significant rise in the last 3 years, because way back in 2018, I think that figure was around 65%. Of the cohort and the numbers of young people who are looked after that are in the youth justice service is relatively small. So a slight shift in 1 or 2 people can actually trigger that percentage rate quite significantly. But of the children looked after cohort, 39% were actually first-time entrants. And that actually equates to 16 of 41. One area that we're hoping that the Youth Engagement Service and that better collaboration of other services will help us with is improving our current 85% success rate on children who are leaving the interventions and leaving at the end of it with education, training or employment. And that's certainly, as I touch on next steps, a real focus, because there's no doubt that that makes a big difference going forward once the interventions have ceased. So there's a real ambition there to bring that figure much higher than 85%. And just again, how we envisage the Youth Engagement Service bringing that is the Youth Engagement Service goes beyond those statutory interventions. So you should have that continuum of a relationship, provide the consistency, and deliver the support. And we're really using that mantra of the right person at the right time and making sure it's the right support. So, like I say, within this, I know we're talking about children looked after. The general comments I'm making there relate to all young people, but they specifically will also work in conjunction with the children looked after. So the next steps was very much, we need to improve that education, training, employment percentage, get that much higher. We need to keep on working on that reduction around violence and violent offences being the index offences. And we've had a start now with the Youth Engagement Service, bringing people together, creating that working environment to improve those relationships for the young people and the support. It's now a case of best foot forward and really integrating that model, and together with it, bringing others, developing that range and access of services. So there's a real plan that will be modelled around the youth engagement service that looks to deliver that. And hopefully, if I've explained myself clear enough, you can see how if we can wrap the services around the young people, we can make a difference either before they get to the youth justice, during, and at the end of those statutory services. So that's the highlights. I seem to have done it in 2 parts today. I'm sorry about that, but any questions?
I think Colleen has another question.
Yeah, again, I just wondered what the split is really from foster families, friends and family carers, and also other provisions like children's homes and things. What is the split of between the different ones? So is there a trend more that there's more in foster care that are offending, or just so that we can have a kind of an insight into what areas we need to concentrate on really?
I'd love to be able to tell you what the split is. I don't have that, and I think that it probably records children who've been looked after in the last 12 months. So I guess again it becomes complicated if there's a change in that. But what I can tell you is the majority, but I can't give you a percentage, from a residential setting.
Right, that's interesting to know. That's where the support needs to be, isn't it, in residential then? Yeah, right, okay, thank you for that.
I think as well, sorry, can I just add, some of our children as well become looked after because of the nature of their offences. They might not have been known to children's services prior, so because of the significance of their offence, if they're remanded into care, into a custodial setting, they become looked after where they won't have before. So we have had a number of those as well, which looks as if it's increased our numbers of children looked after that offend, but that's not necessarily the case. So there's something that sits below that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to know. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I can put some numbers on that. It's in the region of 88% of the young people who ended up remanded in some form of detention were not looked after children until that point that they were remanded.
Oh, that's considerably larger than I would have thought.
Again, we're not talking big numbers, so one person carries quite a significant percentage.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Richard Smith has a question, I think.
Thank you. Yes, hi. I've got a couple of points really. I've always been an advocate of being extremely careful about criminalising looked after children, and I'm not going to go through all the former conversations we've had about this, but it's more of a general point. I'm just a little bit, and a note of caution really about the change of emphasis, the change of name, from a youth offending team to a service. We still see quite a lot of issues with gangs of children and young people, and antisocial behaviours. And I don't want this to become a descent into a service for somebody. He's still got to provide a service to residents of Kirklees when antisocial behaviour takes place, and we've got to have a line somewhere, and I just don't want it to get, we've seen a lot of issues with the police recently where they're no longer a police force, they're now a police service, and they're losing the effectiveness to fight crime, and I don't want that to take place here. That's my only point.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the sentiment around that. What the service actually does, as opposed to what the team does, it still follows the statutory framework, and a young person, if the circumstances are right and appropriate, will end at at a court sitting, a conviction, or whatever that would be. I think the point around the change of the name from youth offending team to youth justice service is very much about a label, and where those young people would go to, because I think we are providing a service, and that service is here, one, to protect, well, put it in whatever you want, but you're going to protect the young person, try to make a difference so that young person doesn't reoffend, and equip that young person with a future in which they can contribute to a better life for themselves and a better life for their community and Kirklees. I think the decision around the youth offending tag suggests that is all they are, and it's now about the child. But I happily take your point.
I don't disagree an awful lot, to be honest, with what you just said. It's just an observation.
Councillor John Lawson has a question or a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is a question. On page 37 of our report, I think there's the second paragraph up from the bottom. We start talking about children having experienced abuse, trauma and neglect, directly impacting on their social, emotional and physical development. Now, to my mind, that's basically adverse childhood experience themes there that we're talking about. Now, I think what I'm particularly interested in is how we're able to promote those with partners like the police, and promote the awareness of those themes and say, look, these, when you're entering into this situation, just have these at the front of your brain. And I don't know what engagement work we've done in the past with that, but is there a space where we can promote that even more as we go forward?
Absolutely, there is, and your timing is impeccable, because as soon as I finish this board this morning, I'm dropping back into an event, which is a 3-day event for the whole of the partnership around adverse childhood experiences. So you're on the money in that respect, because it's there and it's there at the forefront. But it's a lot more than the children's services that are participating. There's schools, there's police, there's health, and so yeah, the timing couldn't be any better for that question, to be honest.
Well, that's very exciting to hear. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any other questions. Can I just say in that, I'm a huge fan of early interventions and work, and this co-investment with youth engagement services I find really reassuring and exciting, so thank you very much for your presentation today, and if I don't see any other questions, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Ian.
Okay, thank you.
May I give apologies to colleagues, because I was happily wandering through the pack of papers and not addressing the agenda, and I missed out the proposal for fostering modernisation, which is a verbal update, and my sincere apologies for that. I'm making this even more muddled a day than it could be. So who is doing the verbal presentation on modernisation of fostering?
Councillor Kendrick, this will be myself and Laura Corns, because we're doing a bit of a double act. And actually, the way you've done this is a nice segue. So I think actually you did this purposefully, because it fits nicely.
Yeah, it was all planned.
I knew it was planned. I knew you'd done this purposefully. So I will start. So as I'd said before, I'm Elaine McShane. I'm the Service Director, Family Support and Child Protection. And currently I have all services from the front door right through to adoption. And I have the Children Looked After service. But actually, under Tom Brailsford sits the fostering service, which includes the supervising social workers. And so what we've taken the decision to do in terms of our modernisation is move some of the services back under my umbrella. So part of the modernisation, and this is very much about supporting our carers wherever they sit, whether they're in foster care, children's homes, family and friends, so that whole range of carers. So coming together under my umbrella, as I call it, is the Mockingbird MST Fit, which is our new children's home that's actually been established. We're moving ahead with that. We've already got our therapist. We're recruiting the service manager for the children's homes. For people that don't know, an MST Fit children's home is very much about actually keeping children within their family or returning them back to their family. It's a 12-week programme in the home where MST work with the child and work with the family, and then there's a further 3 months when the child returned home where MST Fit continue to support. Part of what we're looking around that as well is how we use some of that resource for our foster placements, so that actually we can look at ensuring that we're maintaining support for foster carers. The other element actually, so the placement support service currently sits under my remit, but what we're bringing across to actually bring together are the supervising social workers. And what we want to develop is a broader placement support service that is relationship based, trauma informed, and actually uses formulation. So the trauma informed element is very much what we were talking about, recognising for the children that actually come into our care, there'll be some adversity in their early lives. That's why they've ended with us. It's not about revisiting that, it's about how we move them forward. And the formulation is an approach that uses restorative practice to support families better understand, and families and carers, what's going on and supporting at the right time. What we want to do around the placement support, it's very much what we were talking about earlier on. It's that preemptive, it's that early support, it's having an evidence base for our practitioners, supporting our foster carers. You know, I want to acknowledge, it's been said, but I want to say it again, this has been unprecedented times, and the commitment and dedication of our foster carers in all range, all the practitioners I work with, as you know, has been fantastic. You can't say anything less than that. What I've considered is how we support our carers going forward in a proactive way. So we talk about stability meetings. My ideal is that we wouldn't get to a stability meeting, because from the onset of actually a child being placed with a foster carer, there's supporting from the beginning, and that continues. And we're having conversations, almost like we do with our families, about what's happening if things going well, and not missing some nuances, because things in a family can change very quickly. So we want to try and work in a very different way to ensure that, you know, foster carers are confident in their caring, but confident that they'll receive the support they need in a timely way. So some of the things that we're going to be doing is group supervision. Some of that will be with supervising social workers and foster carers, facilitated by managers, but also having clinicians in the room to advise and guide and contribute to those discussions. We're going to actually look at how we have consultations, bringing together the supervising social worker and the child looked after worker to have conversations how they're working together to support their child or young person. It's still work in progress, because we've got another session with the teams tomorrow actually, and what we want to do is bring a proper paper back to this meeting once we've formed it, because as with restorative practice, what we're not saying to the team is this is the exact model. We're talking using the skills, knowledge and expertise, and we'll be talking to our foster carers about what will this best look like. So we have a model that actually addresses all the things that we've talked about, and actually we're creative in the way that we actually move forward. So that's just a little bit of an overview, and I'm happy to take questions, although it is, as I said, work in practice.
questions, anybody? Foster carers got any thoughts or questions?
I'd just like to see a bit more meat on the bones, really. Just know how that's gonna pan out, and how does that look for staying put and everything else going forward as well, to support our young people as well as carers.
Absolutely. And what I've got in training, and this is not necessarily with this, but actually the staying put policy, you'll be glad to hear, Colleen, is almost complete.
Yay,
you'll be
3 years.
Yeah, you'll be jumping up and down, won't you? It's almost, I've just got to share it with Councillor Kendrick. I'm just sort of doing the fine tuning, that golden thread, because it links to the care leavers policy that we've developed as well, and they're interlinked. So we just want to sort of land them at the same time. And I know they've been a long time coming. I think when you see them, you'll understand why. I think actually they'll address a lot of the concerns that have been in place over the last few years. But we're very close to presenting those. So all this will come together at the same time.
Can I just say, it's a pleasure working with Elaine, Mel, Megs, Paul and Tom. They're a breath of fresh air, and it's what Kirklees need moving forward. So well done, Elaine. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You've made, I've got all goosebumps now, and that's recorded. Sorry.
Lovely.
Thank you, Colleen.
And I promise to read the stuff and comment on it as fast as possible. I don't want to be the cause of any delays. Any other questions? No. Is there any more to add to this, or is that complete, Elaine?
Laura's going to talk about the next part.
Yeah, so I'll give you a bit more of a detailed update on what we've been doing around fostering recruitment. So back in 2020, there was a lean review took place of the fostering recruitment process. And it kind of looked at every step in the process and every contact in the process, and that's led to us putting in place this development plan. It highlighted some key areas that we could improve, where we could be more efficient, but it is about having the right resource in there, but also using that resource in the right way. The review very much focused on where there was wastage in the process, and how we could then kind of redevelop that process to make us a lot more efficient. So some of the areas that we're working on, and this is the first part of the plan, which is almost complete, is that we've been working very much on our web presence, on the information that's on the website, and just making sure that people can access information about the Kirklees Fostering Service and about the offer from the fostering service as and when they want to. We're very much aware that we are in competition with fostering agencies, and that quick response and that quick access to information is something that's absolutely crucial to making sure that we're responding to people quickly. So we've got, as part of that, as well as information, we've got some inquiry forms on there now, and it basically just auto responds to people to give them the initial information that we feel that people would need to kind of make a decision really about whether they'd want to go any further in applying to become a foster carer. So we've also been doing some work on Liquid Logic, which is our client management system. The fostering recruitment pathway on there wasn't necessarily as streamlined as it could be. And what we've been able to do is take on a development that's been done over in the Greater Manchester area, which again very much streamlines, simplifies and saves time, because what we want our staff to be doing is to be focusing on talking to prospective carers and working through that fostering journey, not working around a system that kind of wasn't, like I say, the most streamlined. So it linked into the Liquid Logic developments, which will be coming online in mid-May, is the availability of data around fostering recruitment. So one of the key challenges is that we didn't have regular data around the fostering recruitment process. because what we need to really closely examine is each aspect of that foster and recruitment journey, where carers are dropping out, where there's delays in the process, you know, which bits of our process were not working properly for us, and that ongoing data is what helps us to really kind of understand what's happening for prospective foster carers, but also perhaps where our systems are not quite right. So the implementation of the new Liquid Logic process will mean that we then have data at our fingertips, and we'll receive regular data from that. We've then been focusing a lot of the initial effort process. So what happens when somebody expresses an interest in becoming a foster carer? What response do we give? How do we then work through those first phases of speaking to somebody at the beginning, but not too much? And how do we then work through identifying which of those prospective foster carers are suitable to go forward to apply and then go forward for an assessment? And again, that's highlighted some areas where we perhaps weren't being as efficient as we could be. And again, it's about where the decision making sits and the management oversight. So we've worked through each step of that, and there will be some proposals going into senior leadership team initially around making some slight changes around that process and around who does what within that process. And we've also been talking to other local authorities to understand how their process works and how they run that, because although we're not necessarily just going to pick up and run with what somebody else is doing, it's really interesting and useful to find out how other local authorities, particularly the ones who we know are doing well with recruiting foster carers, what are they doing differently? How are they approaching things differently? Okay, so beyond the first part of the process, we've then kind of moved on to look at the whole process, and that's led by the by the new pathway, and it's led by our business process mapping. So that's kind of the behind the scenes business processes that sit behind how do you complete a fostering assessment within timescales. How do you make sure that assessment is concise, it's succinct, it covers everything it needs to cover, so that when that assessment goes to the fostering panel, that you shouldn't get too many questions at foster panel. Those questions should have been covered by the management oversight throughout the assessment process. So again, it's about that smooth process, but it's also making sure that the assessment is covering the aspects that need to be covered, so that your presentation at the foster panel members have all the information in front of them, so that they can then make a recommendation, which is then signed off by the agency decision maker. The last part of phase 1 of the development plan is about feedback from foster carers who've come through the foster and recruitment process, and also from people who have pulled out at point within the process. So we've done an initial piece of work around understanding the feedback. It has highlighted some areas which, I said before, have been fed into the development plan, and we're currently working at the moment on how we gain that ongoing feedback, because there are obviously people in this meeting who've been through that process. It is a long process. It is a process that requires a depth of information, both for the assessor to obtain that information, but also for people feel comfortable to share that information. So how do we make that process a good experience for the prospective foster carer? As I say, making sure that we collate the statutory information that we have to collate to then present that assessment to the panel. So we are, like I say, we are within that process, within kind of that modernisation, if you like, at the moment. And I'm quite happy once that's been concluded to come back and sort of give the update in terms of what does that you know, that new kind of offer from our fostering recruitment team. You know, what does that look like? What does that offer? And ultimately the you know, that the proof is in the numbers, isn't it? You know, we should start to see an increase in numbers of foster carers coming through panel. That's the ultimate aim. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. I think it's quite important that comes back to the board, you know, as soon as it's available for us to look at. And I find it quite heartening that you're looking at feedback from people who drop out partway through the process, because that's very interesting. I've got a question. I'll leap in while I'm waiting to see if anybody else has. You talked about you were looking at what response we give to would-be foster carers. I suppose my question is, are you looking about how quickly we respond? Because the one thing I am aware of is that IFAs nearly snap your hand off. They are very fast. Are we looking at how quickly we respond?
Yeah, so we've got a target in place where the fostering advisors are targeted with contacting a prospective foster carer within 24 hours. But what we have said is that if that response comes in during the working day, then we expect it to be responded to within the working day. And it's absolutely so important that you know, prospective foster carers feel that we want them to be foster carers with Kirklees, and that's your first impression, isn't it, around the quickness of the response, and also the, you know, the response you get from the you know, the person on the phone. So we have put some, you know, some targets in there, and we're clear about those expectations.
Yeah. Councillor John Lawson wishes to ask a question.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on the idea of we're in a competitive market almost for our foster carers, and I think I'd like to see when it comes back is just how many foster carers we are losing to other authorities or other organisations, and how many we feel as though those early dropouts are actually coming to see what we've got to offer, and then going elsewhere and see if we can't capture that information as well. Just seems a vital part of where we are at the moment. I know I don't particularly agree with the way it's being worked at the moment, that we're under this competitive scenario, but we are. So we do need to
reality at the moment, isn't it?
So we do need to behave like that and just see where we stand. So yeah, look forward to it coming back. Thank you.
I think there's something as well about how we put our offer across to prospective foster carers, almost how we sell that offer, and particularly with the modernisation and the changes in placement support, what we need to be better at is we need to kind of be able to promote what our support offer is to foster carers. And I think, if I'm honest, I think agencies sometimes have a bit more of a glossy, you know, kind of glossy brochure or, you know, glossy publicity, but there's absolutely nothing to stop us doing the same. And I think that's some of the ways we have now got a marketing strategy. It's not been signed off yet, but it is there. And it's in there in terms of how do we really promote local authority fostering, because I honestly don't think that a lot of the agencies can offer anything better than local authorities, but it's about how we put that across and how we sell that.
So there's something that comes out of that, isn't there, which is how do we balance that with not over promising and people getting on board and then being disappointed with what they see, you know, because we've over promised. So it's how do we balance that? How do we make it all sort of sync and mesh, if you like, you know? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think any information as it develops would be really welcome to board members, Laura. Pauline Kenworthy, foster carer and board member, has a question or a comment.
Yeah, just like an offer for a foster carer, you know, a lot of local authorities don't charge their foster carers council tax. That would be like it's a bit of a bonus, but it's also a drawing as well. So if people had to move house to foster, they'd know that would be covered. That would be, you know, it's only a few few carers, and I think it would be an added bonus to carers to do that. Probably a lot of might be on benefits, it wouldn't benefit her, but for other people coming in who may be changing their career to be a foster carer, that would be a, you know, an added bonus for them.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll pick that up. We are looking at what other local authorities are offering as well, you know, to foster carers, and, you know, some of the benefits, you know, around kind of leisure opportunities, holiday opportunities. But yeah, we'll have a, you know, we'll have a look at that. It's not something I can decide on. Obviously, it's a corporate, but yeah, we can have a look at that.
Thank you very much for that, Elaine and Laura. Can I just add one further comment or request, please? I am aware of Barry's passion, and is when he talked about supporting foster carers who are sounding to be on the edge. I don't know how much their issues are linked in back to the council, or whether it's the fostering network just providing support. I'd love it if you would find whoever is appropriate, Elaine or Laura, to perhaps have that discussion with Barry, please, outside this meeting.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Yeah, and I think it'll be a accumulation. You know, it's been we're in a year's anniversary, aren't we? It's been such a difficult year for everybody, managing so many different things that are unprecedented. So certainly we'll pick that up.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If there are no more questions, we'll move on, please, if I've got it right this time, to item 12, which is a verbal update on Ofsted and the Ambition Board, which is now, what was the Improvement Board has now moved on to be the Ambition Board, because we know where we're going and we know how well we're doing so far. Is that you, Julie, or Elaine?
I think it's Elaine. Elaine, yeah.
Well, it does say in my agenda,
it says
down as you, Julie.
All right. Elaine, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't mind picking this up. I think Councillor Kendrick's right. The Ambition Board is what we've moved to, and that's a move away from the Improvement Board. And the Improvement Board was very much about children's services and where we were when first, inspected actually. It's 2 years, in 2016, it's actually 2 years coming up that we had our last inspection where we were made requires improvement. And what the Ambition Board is doing is still checking with us. We're still reporting to the board around the work that we're doing around there were a number of recommendations around care leavers, our children looked after, permanence plan decision, actually, because we don't talk about in the corporate parenting board, and this might be something that we do, is where we're making our permanence decisions. And I think there's a crossover between how we're scrutinising the corporate parenting board and then that assurance that we have to provide to the Ambition Board. And I think, Councillor Kendrick, it might be worth a conversation in our lead briefing about what reports go to both meetings. Yeah. It would be one report, but actually discussed in different venues. Because the Ambition Board is a multi-agency meeting where we actually ask parents to contribute. This is almost a meeting where actually we have a level of scrutiny and you seek assurance as members. So I think it would be right and proper to have reports that are presented to the Ambition Board to this meeting as well. I think there are some different, they're about children looked after, but there are some nuances outside of the data. So how many placement with parents was one of the things that was raised by at the last inspection. We've done a lot of work on that. Julie's got a permanence tracker. It links into our number of foster carers. So, for example, I know how many children that we've got placed permanently with our internal foster carers. I also know how many we've got placed permanently with our IFA carers. So, and so then the figure is how many children are awaiting permanence and what provision is available for them. So the different conversations, but I think equally pertinent to both meetings, and actually cover a lot of what we've talked about this morning about sufficiency where children are placed.
I think you're absolutely right, Elaine, and I would welcome your suggestion as such. Any questions as such on that, colleagues? No? Okay. And I move to item 13, please, which is updates from board members on interactions with services. I don't know if anybody has anything they feel they wish to report or share with the board. Councillor John Lawson.
Oh, Chair. Yeah, just briefly, with my work on the corporate scrutiny panel, for the past year or so, we've been following the issue of settled status with children looked after, with leaving the EU. I raised it last time, last but one corporate scrutiny panel, and it was Naz Parker who was dealing with under his auspices as managing transition from leaving the EU. So I've kind of lost quite what's going on there, quite what the thread is. So if there's anybody in the room who can answer that, where we are with that, that's fine. But if not, I'll pick it up out of the room and continue to chase it.
Has anybody got any further information on that?
Regards to our children looked after, we
Yes.
have, Julie, you will know, we've done a lot of work. Do you want to answer this, Julie?
Yeah, so with regards to our children looked after, we've submitted all our figures and all our information to the government. That's all completed and has been done quite well now, Councillor Lawson.
So they've been done quite.
We've submitted to the government all our information, all our figures in terms of our looked after children.
Excellent.
Because
there was an issue about something around about the misnationalizing, if you like, so getting the wrong nationality, and being 100% confident that we had the right nationalities of the children in care. So there was a little bit of something about that, but we had to double check what was going on with that.
Yes.
I understand that there's quite a long waiting period whilst it disappears into a government pigeonhole somewhere. So, but did we get to the bottom of the identifying children's nationalities? I'm guessing so, if they're all in.
Yes, yeah. But for our looked after children, yes, that's happening. And as I say, the data's being submitted.
That's great. Okay, thanks ever so much.
Lovely. I'm not seeing anybody else. I have to report that during half term, I got invited to several children and young people's virtual activities. And some very strange moments, I have to tell you. I visited Time Step Studios virtually, who provide dance and movement and particularly work with children with complex needs as well. And that was really enlightening and fascinating. I went to two of the music events during the week, and then to Winter Wacky, which was young people with additional needs, and there was a quiz and a treasure hunt type of quiz. I failed at both of those events. Mostly, I claim it was very ageist. It was a lot about current modern music and modern films, of which I'm no expert, but it was obviously of huge enjoyment to all the people there, and I enjoyed it too. I also had an interview with the researcher who's doing some research on our journey, our improvement journey, and work alongside Leeds on behalf of the DFE. And sadly, I have to say I didn't observe the last children's scrutiny panel because I wasn't well. That was the only reason I wasn't there, but that's the only update I have as such. So if we can finally look at, please, the Corporate Parenting Board Work Programme, which is item 14. It starts on page 41, and this is really for members of the board to look at items that we've completed, whether you're satisfied with that or anything that you want to revisit, and also whether you are happy with proposals going forward, potential things that are listed on the back page as such. Any comments as such about the work plan? I'm not seeing anything as such. So I'll take it that you're happy so far. Are there any particular items that people have thought of that they would like to see on the work programme, besides certain items that have been identified during this meeting for the future? I'm not seeing anything in the comments. That's the only way I can see, folks. And just going backwards as a feedback to, I think, item 13. Colleen, you want to say something about things that occurred, I think, during the half-term holidays as such?
Yeah, lockdown, everything. Murfield Community Centre have been brilliant, supporting children in that area and also reaching out to foster carers as well. They've done some great work, you know, even posting out activities for children to do at home as well, which has been really great, arts and craft things. My young people worked with Safety and Music before Christmas and released a video, which I thought was absolutely amazing, celebrating, you know, why it's cool not to be in a gang. And it was sponsored by the Youth Justice Board, and fantastic work that they're doing with the young people. To get teenagers involved in DJing, expressing themselves, I just thought was absolutely amazing. And my young people I bought them DJ decks now so they can practice at home with headphones, of course, so they can practice at home. It was just good to see something new, inventive and modern for the kids to do something that was, in lockdown, that they could actually do and participate in. And I just thought, fantastic way forward for next year for the year in music. I think that Elaine's probably doing for next year. And I just want to say a big thank you to the KFN for supporting carers, because they've done welcome packs, Christmas packs, Easter packs. They've done everything, and even Valentine's packs for foster carers to keep the morale up. And I just think, as an organisation, I think we've got a lot of fantastic quality and a lot of people doing things for the right reasons, and it's good to hear that. I just wanted to say that. That's all.
Excellent. My thanks as well to those. Thank you very much. Can I say, I think we now come to the conclusion of today's meeting. It's been a very weird experience for me because I'm just looking at a blank screen with the chat bar down the side. So that's made it very exciting for me. As we go on our way from this meeting, can I remind people that at 12 o'clock today, the country is asked to spend a minute to contemplate the sad loss of 126,000 people who lost their lives to COVID, and our thoughts with their family and friends. Thank you very much. Goodbye.